flicker of a flame in a broken mind. Shadows crawling where the truth won't shine. Blood on the ink, silence in the screams. Welcome to the edge of your darkest dreams. Scrolling through the wreckage, faces on the screen. Another name, another ghost caught in between. Sirens in the distance, echoes in the night. The facts get buried where the fear ignites. We chase the story, truth or myth. A cigarette burns where justice sits. Headstones and headlines, digging through the dirt where the dead still cry. Whispers in the bylines, truth don't sleep and the lies don't die. In the chains, dust in the frame, cold case heat with a soul to name. Steel in our voice, fire in the tone. We bring the buried stories home. Lights on the tape, blood on the wire. A cold world burns in a funeral fire. Headstones and headlines, digging through the dirt where the dead still cry. Whispers in the bylines, truth don't sleep and the lies don't die. Headstones and headlines, we speak the names they left behind. Can you hear 'em calling? Can you feel the silence crawl? We stare down the darkness and give a voice to them all. Headstones and headlines, digging through the dirt where the dead still cry. Whispers in the bylines, truth don't sleep and the lies don't die. Headstones and headlines, we speak the names they left behind. We speak the truth don't sleep and the lies don't die.
Hey everyone, that I did not want to be on there. There we go. That's the one I wanted. StreamYard has updated a bunch of stuff and it's actually made things easier, but you always have to make sure you have the right scene on in order for things to actually do what you want it to do. So, how is everyone? I hadn't planned on going live today, but there was actually today was like a super busy news day. There's so many stories and updates and cases that I've talked about. There is a trial going on currently for the semi driver that had slammed into the back of a bus and several were injured. There were some who lost their lives. Just tons of stories. So today I am planning on talking about the sentencing in the Preston Lord death, which has been a long time coming. I did put the link to my playlist of all of the other live streams I've done about Preston's death in the description of this video if you should choose to want to check it out. I do have a video that kind of summarizes the case up to this point, and then we are going to watch the full sentencing of excuse me, oh my gosh, I'm like blanking out. Oh my gosh, what is the kid's name? William. Oh my gosh, I just had my brain just completely went blank. William Hines just escaped my brain. That's about 2 hours. So this will be a little bit of a longer live than normal. And the last thing I have is also today, one of the correctional officers being charged in the death of Robert Brooks pled guilty to manslaughter and other charges. He has not pled guilty to the second-degree murder charge. So that was interesting to me that he didn't plead guilty. He pled not guilty to second-degree murder, but he pled guilty to manslaughter. He lied to investigators. Just it was interesting to me. So we are going to check out, that'll be the last thing we watch, and that's about 10 minutes long. So thanks for being here, Ninja. Sinner, as always. Grain, good to see you. All right, not many people here. I'm not sure. I know the Diddy trial, jury selection started today, so, that seems to be a hot topic, although today at school, I had forgotten, and at lunch, I was like, oh my gosh, Diddy's trial starts today. And then the kids are like, why are you talking about Diddy? And I'm like, his trial starts today. So I will not be covering that, though. I will not. Hey, SG, how's it going? So I may be busy this week doing some live streams and shorts because, gosh, there was a mass shooting in Glendale outside of a steakhouse. It turns out it was a dispute between two groups of people, several dead now, several injured. There was a boat that capsized. 16 were on the boat. Several are still missing. There was, I believe, 3 dead. Just so many things happening today. I don't know what's going on, but it's just so many things happening today. So we are going to get started. Hey, Grandma Sherry, long time no see. I hope you're well. I hope you're getting nice weather out in Texas. All right, so let me add this. Oh, and actually, I changed the order. I forgot. So we're actually going to watch the the guilty plea of the first CO who is being charged not only with second-degree murder, but also manslaughter and other charges in relation to Robert Brooks' death. Then we'll get into the Preston Lord stuff. I forgot that I changed the order. I'm very discombobulated today. All right, here we go.
All rise. This term of Oneida County Court is now in session with the Honorable Robert L. Bauer presiding.
And for those of you who may not know the story of Robert Brooks, he was an inmate at Marcy Correctional Facility in Onondaga County, New York, which is east of Syracuse. And there were several correctional officers who have been charged with his murder. This is one of them. And it's interesting. New York is hopefully going to start holding people accountable because there's also Messiah Nyantwa, who also lost his life at Mid-State Correctional Facility, which is across the street from Marcy, and several have been charged in his murder. So lots of things hopefully changing for the better. And I will mute during this court hearing.
Please be seated.
Christopher Walworth.
watch that recording there, sir.
So get used to the quorum, Judge Sardi.
Understood. Now, this is the matter of the people against Christopher Walrath, indictment 25035, calendar for possible disposition here this morning. I do have a number of requests from local news media to cover today's proceedings. Any objection, counsel?
No objection, Judge.
By Mr. Fitzpatrick.
No, Your Honor.
And the court will permit the same. As I said, the matter is calendared today. It's the court's understanding that the parties may now have arrived at an agreed upon disposition. And I'll just begin by noting it's my understanding further, Mr. Fitzpatrick, that this disposition's been arrived at after you have considered the various levels of culpability of the co-defendants involved in this case, and you believe the proposed disposition is appropriate for this specific defendant's level of culpability, and further that this offer has been extended only after consultation with and having received agreement from the victim's family. Do I have that right?
You have everything correct, Your Honor.
So let me state my complete understanding of the proposal then. That is that the defendant will be pleading guilty to count 2 of the indictment that charges the felony offense of manslaughter in the first degree, and the agreed upon sentence would then be 15 years in state prison along with 5 years post-release supervision, a waiver of appeal, and mandatory state surcharges, and that would satisfy the remaining count contained in this indictment. Is that the people's understanding?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Fruity, that's your understanding?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Mr. Walrath, is that your understanding of the proposal to resolve these charges, and is that what you want to do here today?
Yes, sir.
Please raise your right hand. Sir, do you now swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Then put your hand down. Mr. Walrath, I'm going to ask you some questions now. These are to help me decide if I can accept your plea or not. So if at any time you do not hear a question, you do not understand, or you need a moment to stop and speak further with your attorney, then you have to let me know that, okay?
Sir.
You understand by answering my questions and pleading guilty here this morning, you're giving up your right to remain silent and to not incriminate yourself.
Yes.
Have you spoken with your attorney about your case, about pleading guilty and thereby waiving your right to have a trial?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with the services of your attorney?
Yes.
Have you had enough time now to speak with your attorney about your case?
Yes.
The charge you are to plead guilty to pursuant to this agreement is count 2 of this indictment. It charges you with the felony offense of manslaughter in the first degree. That is in violation of penal law sections 125.20 subdivision 1 and also 20.00 as you are charged under an accomplice liability theory. It's alleged here that on or about the 9th day of December 2024, while you were here in the county of Oneida in the town of Marcy, you along with your co-defendants acting in concert with each other, being corrections officers, and intending to cause serious physical injury to another person, you did cause the death of that person, that being that you along with your co-defendants participated in multiple beatings of incarcerated individual Robert Brooks, which ultimately resulted in that individual's death. Do you admit that all to be true?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, did you want anything further for the elocution?
A few series of questions with the court's permission.
You may go right ahead.
Mr. Walworth, you were assigned to work in the Arsenal area of Marcy Correctional Facility on December the 9th, 2024. Is that correct?
Yes,
Did you leave your post inside of the Arsenal area on December the 9th against departmental policy and procedures upon the arrival of Robert Brooks?
yes,
Did you and your fellow corrections officers, Nicholas Kiefer, Nicholas Anzalone, and Robert Kessler, assault Robert Brooks outside of the Arsenal on December the 9th, 2024?
yes,
During that assault, did you put Robert Brooks in a chokehold against departmental policy and procedure?
yes,
On December the 9th, while in the emergency room of the Marcy Correctional Facility, did you and other corrections officers assault Robert Brooks?
yes,
During that assault, did you strike Robert Brooks about his body?
yes,
And did you intentionally strike him in his groin?
yes,
Were you aware at that time that striking an incarcerated individual in the groin is against departmental policy and procedure?
yes,
Is it correct that you never reported the use of force that was used on Robert Brooks near the Arsenal area at Marcy Correctional?
yes,
Is it correct that you never reported the use of force that was used on Robert Brooks in the emergency room at Marcy Correctional?
yes,
You were aware, sir, were you not, that you were required to report any and all uses of force on an incarcerated individual, whether justified or not.
Yes.
And nevertheless, you lied about the use of force used on Robert Brooks on December the 9th, 2024.
Yes.
And sir, at the emergency room, you did nothing to prevent the assault or protect Mr. Brooks. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you realize that these repeated assaults caused serious physical injury to Mr. Brooks and resulted in his death.
Yes.
People are satisfied, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Walrath, how then do you plead to the second count, manslaughter in the first degree, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
How old are you now, Mr. Walrath?
37.
And you can read and write the English language, correct?
Yes.
You're a citizen of the United States?
Yes.
Do you have any physical or mental problems that could prevent you from understanding what you're doing here today?
No.
Did you consume any kind of drug, medicine, or alcohol before coming to court that could affect your understanding?
No.
You're not currently on any form of probation or parole, are you?
No.
By pleading guilty, you are giving up your right to have a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
At a jury trial, you would be presumed innocent and you would be entitled to the following rights: to be represented by your attorney, to confront and cross-examine witnesses presented by the government. You'd have the right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself. You would have the right, but would not be required, to call witnesses, or you could testify on your own behalf. You would also have the right to require the government to prove your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of 12 people who would have to be unanimous in finding you guilty. Do you understand? You have each of these rights, and by pleading guilty here today, you're giving up each of these rights.
Yes.
Do you understand? By pleading guilty, you're also giving up any defense you might have to these charges.
Yes.
Now, a plea of guilty is the same as a verdict of guilty rendered by a jury after a trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Other than the plea and sentence agreement I spoke of earlier, has anyone made any other promises to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Did anyone threaten you or force you to plead guilty?
No.
Have you entered this plea today voluntarily and of your own choice?
Yes.
Do you understand that those that are incarcerated for a felony conviction do lose their right to vote in an election until such time as they are released?
Yes.
And now lastly, sir, part of your negotiated plea here does require that you waive your right to appeal. As a defendant in this court, if convicted, you have a separate and distinct right to appeal a judgment of conviction to a higher court in Rochester known as the appellate division. There you can with your attorney, and a free one if you cannot afford it. You can file a brief and argue before that court that there exists some problem with your conviction here in this court. That is a right you have. It's also a right you can waive or give up, and it is being required that you waive your right to appeal on condition I give you the sentence promised to you. That means your conviction and sentence in this court will likely be final, so there's then little you can do to go back after the fact to try and change that. You will have thereby significantly limited your options for appeal in the future. Do you understand?
Yes.
Have you spoken with your attorney about waiving your right to appeal?
Yes, I have.
Do you then agree to waive your right to appeal on condition I give you the sentence promised?
Yes.
And are you doing so voluntarily?
Yes.
I'm holding up for you a document entitled Waiver of Right to Appeal. Halfway down the page, I see the signature, Christopher Walrath. Did you sign this document here after reading through it and reviewing it with your attorney?
Yes.
Based upon the defendant's statement, standings, demeanor here in court, I find a knowing voluntary plea with a factual basis. I will direct the clerk to enter the plea into the minutes of this court to adjourn sentence on sale.
July 16th.
Your Honor, it was my understanding that the people were not going to object to our request to have the sentencing take place on August 1st.
I know you did read that a little bit. You don't have any objection going out there?
No, August 1st is a Friday, Judge. I don't know if counsel prefers August 4th, which is a Monday. And we have no objection to him remaining out, getting his affairs in order. And I've also discussed that with the family.
We appreciate that, and we would prefer the 4th.
All right, then, August 4th at 9:30 a.m. for sentencing. And you're going to remain out on the bond that you posted, Mr. Walrath, but that's going to be with some conditions attached as part of our plea agreement here. Condition 1 is you do have to meet and cooperate truthfully with the probation department as they prepare your pre-sentence investigation. Condition 2, you have to come back to the court on any date you're required to be here. As of right now, you know that's August 4th at 9:30 in the morning to be sentenced. The third condition is you must commit no offenses. There are to be no new arrests of any kind between now and the time of your sentencing. Do you understand each of those conditions?
Yes.
If you fail to abide by one or more of those conditions, I would not be bound by the sentence agreement. I would not permit you to withdraw your plea, and I would be authorized to sentence you to any term my law permits. You understand that?
Yes.
You can speak with probation on your way out regarding setting up your DSI. I'll see you back here August 4th. Anything further from either side?
No, Your Honor, thank you very much.
Thank you, counsel.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, so interesting. He gets to stay out on bond until August 4th, which is interesting. I'm guessing that had to do, they must have decided that prior. I mean, usually sentencing isn't, let's see, it's May. Well, I guess it's 3 months out, but still, I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like it should be sooner than that, especially because it's a guilty plea, but that's just me. So August 4th, I'm actually going to put that in my calendar because that's summer break. There we go. All right, so there's one officer has pled guilty to manslaughter. He, however, has not pleaded guilty to the second-degree murder charge. So he still faces that charge once they go to trial. Yeah, SG possibly, but you know, my thing is he should have thought about those things before he did what he did. But I mean, I guess kudos to him for admitting what he did was wrong and for taking responsibility. That's, you know, one way to look at it. All right, so we are now going to get into why we are here, and that is the Preston Lord death. This justice for Preston has been a long time coming. He was beaten to death outside of a Halloween party by what the community refers to as the Goon Squad, a group of teenagers who go around terrorizing and creating havoc in their community. So William Hines is the first of 7 who were sentenced in his death today. So this first clip that I have is just a summary of what happened to Preston, and it also talks about the others being charged in his death, just for those who may not have followed the story in the past. And as I had said at the beginning of the live, there is a link in the description to the playlist of all of the videos I have done covering Preston Lord. So definitely check that out. There is the 911 call. I also read through the probable cause affidavit. Just lots of different things that we went through. Hey, Nanny, how's it going?
Tonight, the 12 News I-Team continues to comb through the more than 1,000 pages, learning more about the Preston Lord murder investigation. The details that we're uncovering are disturbing and shocking.
And this also paints a much clearer picture of just how many Queen Creek police officers have been working this case. Ultimately, they made 7 arrests. Both juveniles and adults are now charged with first-degree murder. The I-Team's Bianca Bono joins us live in studio. And Bianca, what are you learning about each suspect's involvement?
Yeah, guys, our team has been working around the clock to go through all of these records, massive 1,100-page records requests we got back. I first want to point out.
And that actually reminds me, we started going through that 1,600-page document, but we never finished it. So we might want to do that at some point, especially once it gets closer to the trial date of the others. involved in this. I totally forgot about that 1,600-page report.
Now, we don't have all of the evidence that police and prosecutors have, but we're going to lay out what we've gathered from these records about what linked investigators to each of the 7 suspects.
They want to know so they can get that closure.
After 7 suspects were charged in the murder of Preston Lord, 12 new.
Oh, and
After 7.
So this one, Talon Renner, he actually, he comes from a very wealthy family, and he has been getting, in my opinion, special treatment. Police escort to the back of the courthouse. Just his dad and brother. His brother is, also in the criminal system. Dad tried to cover it up. He also, I believe his dad had destroyed evidence. Just really messed up. Really messed up.
Suspects were charged in the murder of Preston Lord. 12 News sat down with Queen Creek Police Chief Randy Bryce. Did your investigation show that all 7 of these suspects participated in the attack?
I wish I could provide everything. So that information will come out during trial.
But some of that information we're learning now. 12 News has obtained an 1,100-page police report detailing the investigation into the October 28th deadly assault of the 16-year-old and what led investigators to these 7 suspects. First, 17-year-old Talon Renner. Police say he sent a message the night of the attack to someone saying, "Got in a fight. Killed a kid. Guess I don't know my own strength." Police say he also posted an audio recording of himself that night stating he killed an expletive. In addition.
Wow. And so I just wanted to verify about the family. And the family of Renner is being charged. The team charged, which would be Talon. The family was accused of a cover-up. And oh my gosh, there's so many ads. And so it says Talon Renner, 17, is one of the 7 accused charged in the death of Preston Lord. In the document, so that 1,600-page document, it is reported that Renner was allegedly aided by his family, who moved him out of town following the attack. The allegations are made in the report by the ex-girlfriend of Travis Renner, Talon's father. The statement alleges that Renner attempted to cover up his son's involvement in the crime, moving him to the family's $850,000 cabin 3 hours away, and advised him to, quote, "let his hands heal" before returning home. Ashley Reynolds, a former employee of Travis Renner, also made claims about the alleged cover-up when she spoke to the Arizona Republic in late February. And this was back in 2024. So that would have been February 2024. The statement alleges that Renner attempted to cover up his son's involvement. Oh, wait, I already read that part. My bad. Previously released video surveillance footage allegedly caught Renner bragging about getting away with Lord's murder, boasting that the 16-year-old had to have a, quote, "closed casket" due to the severity of the beating that killed him. So this Renner kid is, one, arrogant, and 2, his family helped him get away with it, although he didn't get away with it. Hey, Truth Seeker. Hey, Curious. Thanks for being here. Yes, Sunnyside. And in this case, Renner's family had money. Some of the other ones involved, they're not so fortunate. But hopefully they all, spend some time in prison.
Multiple witnesses and a close friend spoke out to police, alleging Renner punched and stomped Preston multiple times. While 18-year-old Preston Billy refused to be interviewed, police say suspect William Hines told them Billy kicked Preston, and several other witnesses told police they saw Billy involved too, including one person who claims after the suspects ran away from Preston, who was lying on the street, Billy ran back, jumped, and landed on Preston's head, cursing at him.
And we did cover the 911 call, which if you choose to listen to the 911 call, it is hard to listen to because Preston was with friends at this Halloween party, and the friend who called 911, they were trying to save him. Preston did survive, but he ended up dying a couple of days later.
According to reports, when 18-year-old suspect William Hines agreed to speak with police, he admitted to kicking Preston, saying, "I was drunk, heat of the moment. I kicked him one time and I kicked his leg."
And William Hines is the defendant. We are going to be watching his sentencing today.
Later, saying it could be more like 1, 2, or 3 kicks. The report shows 20-year-old Dominic Turner stole a gold chain off of someone's neck, which was one of the events that led up to Preston's assault. Multiple witnesses telling police someone matching his description was also involved in the assault. Records show 17-year-old Jacob Meisner punched another teen in the back of the head shortly after Turner is accused of stealing the chain necklace, with additional witnesses and friends telling police he then participated in the attack on Preston. Police say multiple people reported a Snapchat message allegedly sent by 17-year-old Talon Vigil reading, "I hit a kid and this kid fell, hit his head, and then they kicked his head in the ground. Then I got word he died, so I don't know." Though friends of Vigil told police.
So nonchalant and not a care in the world. Like, yeah, he might have died. I don't know.
Police he was not involved in the fight. And in his interview with police, 19-year-old Taylor Sherman denied assaulting Preston, but admitted that he took a video of Preston being dragged out of the roadway. All 7 suspects have pleaded not guilty.
And through these records, we've learned police were at Talon Renner's school asking him questions less than a week after the attack. And then days later, he starred and played in his high school's football game. We'll have much more on what we're learning about that coming up tonight at 6. For now, we're live in studio. Bianca Bono, 12 News.
Bianca.
And so that was a clip from about a year ago. Just to kind of give a summary of this case. Let me get over here to chat quick. It's a different world we live in now than when I was a kid. Just like Ethan Crumley parents locked them up too. Yeah, money does talk. It sure does. Hey, Road Rash, how are you? These kids are monsters. Their parents can't be so dumb that their kid is a bully. And it's not so this William Hines that we're going to watch the sentencing, he was there were assaults outside. Gosh, what was the restaurant? I don't remember now. Just they used brass knuckles. They attacked people in a parking garage. It's like a gang of bullies. They go around beating people up, trying to feed their egos because of whatever reason. And nothing has happened until now, which is really a shame. It's really a shame. Grain says, I cannot even say what I think the punishment should be. I will say I know what the outcome is of this, and I'm not happy with it. I'm not happy with it. But alas, I am not the judge, and I do not make the laws. So there's that. All right, so this is about 2 hours. It includes victim impact statements, the kind of like how it was with Wade Wilson, if you guys were with me for that, they had, some people talk. The prosecution spoke, the defense spoke, and then the judge does his sentencing.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. So
And I will
we
mute.
have 6 different people that we expect to address the court. We're going to start off with Dana Zazik, along with her son, who will be accompanying her up to the podium.
Very well, thank you.
And Your Honor, just for the record, this is with respect to the cause number ending in 006240.
All right, thank you. Okay, welcome. Take your time and let me know what you'd like the court to consider.
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Dana Zazik, and I am mom to Benjamin Zazik, the victim in the vehicular aggravated assault case. On July 6, 2023, our lives were forever changed. That evening, around 11 p.m., Ben was driving home from playing cards with his friends when his car was struck by the vehicle of William Owen Hines. For months, I've agonized about writing this victim statement. How do I say what I want to say and still honor the other families in this courtroom whose child is not here? How do I share the trauma that I've experienced as a result of this collision, knowing that my son's recovery is a miracle? My perspective on this case has developed and changed over the past few months, but after reviewing the prosecutor's sentencing recommendation for William Hines, everything changed for me. You see, Ben doesn't remember anything from the night of the accident until about 4 months later, nothing. He has a 4-month gap with no memories. In some ways, this is a blessing, and in others, it's hard for him to imagine what the rest of his family went through. I, however, remember everything. I remember racing to the hospital that night after my husband went to the accident scene because Ben had not made it home unexpected and his phone was tracking there and not moving. I remember sitting in a room at the hospital with no information, not knowing if my child would live or die. I remember seeing Ben for the first time, unresponsive, on a ventilator, and in an induced coma because of the extent of his injuries. I remember the Gilbert police detective visiting us in the hospital the next morning, bringing us Ben's shoes, and talking to us about second-degree murder charges. Benjamin was still alive. I remember our family, friends, and faith community holding prayer vigils for Ben. Prayers for his healing were carried on pilgrimages across the world. Thousands of people prayed for a miracle. After 7 days in the ICU, I remember Ben being transferred to Barrow Neurological Institute for inpatient rehab. My husband and I again took 24-hour shifts to stay with him in the secure wing of the hospital. At Barrow, Ben would learn to walk again. He would relearn how to speak, swallow, and eat. I remember hours and hours of intensive speech, occupational, and physical therapy every day as we spent 16 days in the hospital. I remember Ben making amazing progress and hitting his goals. He impressed all the doctors and therapists with his great attitude and speedy recovery. I remember all the people who supported us back home with prayers, meals, hugs, and notes of support.
All right, so I did pause. I think I actually did find a better audio. So we are going to go over to, this is from Fox 10 Phoenix. I hadn't seen this one earlier, but I just clicked on it and the audio is much better. So we're gonna watch this one instead. Oh, you thought it sounded okay? Oh, okay. Well, we'll do this one. So just as an FYI, this one is a bit louder than the last one. So if you have your earbuds up, just be aware. He pled guilty. Yes.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'll announce for all of the different prosecutors for the state, Ryan Green, Bernita Clark, and John Elison on behalf of the state in the cause number ending in 006528. Also, Martha Blackman is the prosecutor on the cause number ending in 006240. And then on the final 2 cause numbers, I'm standing in for prosecutor Andrew Foss.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Judge. Rachel Golubovich and Teddy Saldivar on behalf of William Owens Hines. He's present and in custody, and we are also standing in for Mr. Raynack today.
All right, thank you. Someone else appearing?
There was a brief logistics issue that perhaps we
our lives were forever changed. That evening around 11 p.m., Ben was driving home from playing cards with his friends when his car was struck by the vehicle of William Owen Hines. For months, I've agonized about writing this victim statement. How do I say what I want to say and still honor the other families in this courtroom whose child is not here? How do I share the trauma that I've experienced as a result of this collision, knowing that my son's recovery is a miracle? My perspective on this case has developed and changed over the past few months, but after reviewing the prosecutor's sentencing recommendation for William Hines, everything changed for me. You see, Ben doesn't remember anything from the night of the accident until about 4 months later. Nothing. He has a 4-month gap with no memories. In some ways, this is a blessing, and in others, it's hard for him to imagine what the rest of his family went through. I, however, remember everything. I remember racing to the hospital that night after my husband went to the accident scene because Ben had not made it home when expected and his phone was tracking there and not moving. I remember sitting in a room at the hospital with no information, not knowing if my child would live or die. I remember seeing Ben for the first time, unresponsive, on a ventilator, and in an induced coma because of the extent of his injuries. I remember the Gilbert police detective visiting us in the hospital the next morning, bringing us Ben's shoes and talking to us about second-degree murder charges. Benjamin was still alive. I remember our family, friends, and faith community holding prayer vigils for Ben. Prayers for his healing were carried on pilgrimages across the world. Thousands of people prayed for a miracle. After 7 days in the ICU, I remember Ben being transferred to Barrow Neurological Institute for inpatient rehab. My husband and I again took 24-hour shifts to stay with him in the secure wing of the hospital. At Barrow, Ben would learn to walk again. He would relearn how to speak, swallow, and eat. I remember hours and hours of intensive speech, occupational, and physical therapy every day as we spent 16 days in the hospital. I remember Ben making amazing progress and hitting his goals. He impressed all the doctors and therapists with his great attitude and speedy recovery. I remember all the people who supported us back home with prayers, meals, hugs, and notes of support. I remember putting on a smiling face during the day and trying to be full of hope, but at night crying myself to sleep because I couldn't imagine what the future would be like for Ben. Would he ever be independent? Would he be able to go to college? Would he be able to drive? Would he have a future without constant support? I remember telling a friend that I knew I should be praying for William Hines, but that I just couldn't do it. How could he have no consequences for what he had done to my son? How could he be out enjoying his senior year of school? My son was in the hospital and may never have a future. I remember her telling me that I didn't need to pray for William and that she would take that burden for me. When Ben was released from the hospital, he came home with us, but needed constant supervision. I remember changing all of the locks on our house because Ben would go for a walk and not tell us. I remember running panicked around our neighborhood because we didn't know where he was. I remember 12 weeks of daily driving from our home in Gilbert to Barrow in Central Phoenix for outpatient therapy. Again, I recall Ben's dramatic improvement. Again, he surpassed all of his goals and graduated his therapy program faster than any of his doctors and therapists thought possible. He tested higher than any of their patients ever had. I remember the day the doctor told us that Ben's recovery was a miracle. She'd never had a patient recover so quickly and completely as Ben. I remember and still know that it was God's mercy that healed Benjamin. I remember in November of 23, finally being able to pray for William Hines. I looked at this whole event as if he was a teen like Ben, and how would I react if it had been my child? What if it was my responsible, smart, loving child who made a bad choice at a party and consumed alcohol and got behind the wheel? I prayed for mercy for him and for him to remember Ben's face and to never drive intoxicated again. I remember Ben starting back to work. I remember meeting with advisors at the community college and signing Ben up for spring classes. I remember submitting Ben's case to the Vatican as a miracle for the cause of the canonization of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati. I remember Ben finally asking us to see the photos that we have from his time in the hospital because he was ready to see the magnitude of what had happened to him, even if he still had no recollection of those months, but he wanted to remember. I still remember the day that we were notified that charges had finally been filed against William Hines almost 6 months after Ben's collision. I recall the dread in the depth of my heart when we found out that he was involved in other crimes, some with tragic results. Our perspective changed that day. I could no longer look at the defendant as just a stupid teen who'd made a careless mistake. Ben and I have been at nearly every court hearing and have been active in this process since then. We've heard all of the information presented and watched the news. I've wrestled with how we needed to respond to what happened to Ben. When we came to the change of plea hearing over a little month ago, Ben and I listened as William Hines gave a statement of remorse and contrition. He spoke of his desire to make better choices and to stay clean from drugs and alcohol. I'm a firm believer in redemption stories, and this spoke to me. This was what I wanted. I wanted the defendant to repent and change his ways. I wanted him to face real consequences for his actions and to use those consequences to make himself a better person and re-enter the world changed. I wanted him to never drink and drive again so that no family would ever have to go through what we've gone through. But William Hines is not showing remorse, and he is not making better decisions. The defendant needs to face real consequences that will help him understand that the choices he has made have tragically hurt families that will feel their effects for the rest of their lives. Our son's life was irreversibly changed by William Hines' actions. It's my hope that William Hines receives the maximum sentence available. Ben may not remember what happened to him, but I will remember forever. Ben and I have forgiven William Hines for his actions, but I will live with the trauma that he caused forever. I will choose to remember all of the people who stood by and supported us. I remember that Ben is here with us by the grace and mercy of God. I will remember that through God, all things are possible. Ben and I will continue to pray every day for William Hines and for his redemption and change of heart. And I will remember that no matter what, all the time, God is good. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Joni.
And when the court's ready, you want me?
I'm ready, yeah.
Sure. The next speaker will be Bryn DeFusco, who is counsel for the next of kin.
Okay, thank you.
All right, when you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Bryn DeFusco. My husband and I represent Preston's parents. I believe I speak for every parent when I say that what happened to Preston is every parent's worst nightmare. His tragic passing shook our community to its core, but it also sparked a movement, Justice for Preston Lord, that continues to bring people together in the pursuit of change. In the months following Preston's death, our community responded with acts of solidarity and remembrance. Marchers were held in his honor. Light the Night events were organized to raise awareness about teen violence. Attendees, united in grief and hope, wore orange, Preston's favorite color, to symbolize his spirit and the need to protect our youth. Throughout the Southeast Valley, orange ribbons appeared on trees and light poles, quiet yet unmistakable reminders of the life we lost and the work that remains. These ribbons told a story, one of heartbreak, but also resilience and resolve. In recognition of Preston's impact and the community's call for action, the City of Chandler proclaimed September 23rd, 2004, what would have been his 17th birthday, as Preston Lord Day. Every year on his birthday, we will honor his life and recommit to preventing the kind of violence that took him from us. Several laws have been passed in response, including one by the City of Chandler prohibiting the possession of brass knuckles by minors and the sale or furnishing of brass knuckles to a minor. Preston's law, which will increase the felony grade and punishment for anyone who participates in an assault with 2 or more accomplices, is under consideration with the Arizona State Legislature. In turning grief into action, Preston's family established Justice for Preston Lord, a nonprofit organization dedicated to breaking the cycle of teen violence and fostering a culture of hope, healing, and positivity among young people. The nonprofit works to raise awareness, promote education, and provide community resources. It offers access to counseling, educational programming on teen violence prevention, and free CPR training a tribute to the 2 high school students who administered CPR to Preston in his final moments. Through Justice for Preston Lord, the family and others have spoken at city council meetings and have engaged in numerous events to benefit their communities. The outpouring of support from individuals and businesses has been spectacular. To further honor Preston's legacy, Preston's mother formed the Preston Lord Memorial Scholarship Fund to raise money and award scholarships to students of Preston School District, Combs Unified School District. Your Honor, the irony of our line of work is that we often never meet the individuals at the heart of our cases, yet we come to know them in deep personal ways. My husband and I never had the pleasure of meeting Preston, but everything we've learned tells us that he was the kind of person who would have offered his friendship, even to Mr. Hines. I want Mr. Hines to understand that. I hope that that truth weighs on the hearts of everyone here today. And while the defendant expressed remorse for the harm he has caused so many, his continued use of alcohol, even while incarcerated, raises serious concerns. Alcohol, among other things, was the underlying cause of the harm he inflicted. Genuine remorse must be paired with accountability and a commitment to change. And right now, that commitment is not evident. We ask that you follow the state's recommendation for 21 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. And Your Honor, the next speaker will be Tony Rich, who is Preston Lord's grandfather.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir.
Tony Rich, Preston's grandpa.
All right, when you're ready.
I come here today to speak for myself as Preston's grandpa. On the morning of October 29th, 23, I received a call from my daughter that I needed to get to the hospital as my grandson Preston had been seriously hurt. I asked if he had been in an accident, and she told me no, that he had been jumped and beaten by a group of people and that had been seriously injured. I left immediately on a 4-hour drive to the valley, and when I arrived at the house, I saw the pumpkins that Preston, his sister, his mom, and my wife were supposed to be carving that day. This turned out to be the worst phone call I'd ever received. Of the 7 individuals that have been charged with Preston's murder on October 28th of 23, this is the first one that has admitted guilt. He had admittedly participated in the taking of life of a young man, by all accounts, from his teachers, coaches, friends, family, and everyone that knew him was going to be a leader and an asset to society. This is proved by his last moments of standing up for one of his friends. 3 weeks from now, on May 21st, my grandson Preston would have been graduating with his class at Combs High School at the top of its class. This individual knew within several days of the attack, by his own acknowledgement during his change of plea, that my grandson Preston Lord had died from the attack that he participated in. He has pled guilty to 3 other attacks, and all of the victims and their families deserve to know that he is serving time for each attack. I am asking the court that these sentences be served consecutively instead of concurrently. I'm also asking for the full 21 years that the state has recommended. His crocodile tears when he changed his plea from guilty for manslaughter and the other attacks really mean nothing to me or to his victims and their families. He is only remorseful for being caught and charged. On August 8th of 24, I was in attendance of a status hearing before Judge Cohen for those involved in Preston's case. I personally witnessed when Tyler Freeman was brought into the court for his status hearing having to do with the other cases that this person has now pleaded guilty to, that they were smirking and laughing at each other across the courtroom as this whole first-degree murder charge and the other attacks were just a joke to them. I brought this to the attention of Judge Cohen during the November 20th hearing when this individual trying to get his case remanded back to the grand jury. These cowards, some have called the Gilbert Goons, made a game of seeking out and attacking an innocent person for their own amusement. William Owen Hines, as part of this group, must be held accountable for his part in the act of taking my grandson Preston's life and the other attacks he has pled guilty to. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then the next speaker will be Melissa Sicante, Preston Lord's stepmother.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Sicante, and I am Preston Lord's stepmother. Your Honor, there are no words that can truly capture the pain of losing our son, Preston. He was only 16 years old, just beginning his life, full of dreams, hopes, and a future that was stolen from him. Since the day that William Owen Hines participated in taking Preston's life, my world has been shattered beyond repair. Preston had a smile that could light up a room and a laugh that was contagious. He was a brother, a friend, and a young man with so much potential, but all of that was taken away. William Owen Hines, you took away his future, and you took away my ability to watch him grow into the incredible person that I knew he would become. The pain of his absence is unbearable. Every morning, I wake up with the crushing weight of knowing that I will never hear his voice, see him walk around the house, or have us sit on the sofa while we listen to what is going on in his life. I will never see him graduate, go to college, fall in love, or achieve his dreams. I will have to endure the emptiness, not only in my heart, but also in my husband's heart. I look at Nick, and I can see a piece of him that is missing.
Take your time.
A piece that can only never be replaced. The fact that he will never get to hug Preston, tell him how proud he is of him, or say, I love you, one last time destroys me. His sister will never have giggling moments between them of brotherly and sisterly bonding. She will never have nieces or nephews. She will never have her partner in life, her brother. Your actions have left an emptiness in my soul that will never heal. You have taken away Preston, and with it, you have stolen a part of my heart. No parent should ever have to bury their child. No family should have to endure this level of suffering. I want you to understand the magnitude of what you have done. I want you to feel the weight of the pain that you have caused, not just to me, but to everyone who loved Preston. I hope that every day for the rest of your life, you remember his name, his face, and the life you cut short. When you participated in Preston's murder, you not only took his life, you took his voice, but I will not let his voice be silenced. I will speak for the voiceless and demand justice for our son. You will not take away my right to stand here and speak on his behalf. While no sentence will ever bring our son back, I ask that the court impose the maximum punishment. Justice will never be enough, but it is the only thing left to fight for. I will grieve for our son every day for the rest of my life. I will carry this pain forever, and I pray that one day you truly understand the depth of the devastation that you have caused. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And Your Honor, the next to address the court will be Nick Lord, Preston's father.
Before we hear from Mr. Lord, could I speak with counsel briefly?
Sure.
And sir, come on up. I just need to Okay, sir, sorry to keep you waiting. When you're ready, go ahead.
Your Honor, my son Preston Lord was a bright, kind, and compassionate young man who brought joy to everyone around him. From an early age, he made me immensely proud to be his father. He loved his family deeply, cherished time with friends, and had a promising future ahead of him. Preston was not only an exceptional student, maintaining outstanding grades while serving on the student council, but he was also a dedicated athlete who played both basketball and golf. He had earned his driver's license and was embracing the freedom and excitement of his teenage years. His whole life was ahead of him. The tragic and senseless violence that took my son's life on October 28th, 2023, has devastated our family in ways words cannot fully capture. Our world has been shattered, and no parent should ever have to endure the pain of burying their child, especially under such horrific circumstances. The loss Preston has left an unimaginable void in our lives, one that can never be filled. As we stand here today, I have no words of forgiveness to offer William Owen Hines for the role he played in my son's death. The severity of the crime demands accountability, and I ask for the maximum sentence to reflect the gravity of his actions. Justice must be served not just to our family, but in Preston's memory and the community that has mourned this senseless act of violence. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir.
And Your Honor, the next speaker will be Autumn Curiel, Preston's mother.
Preston William Lord is my world, my buddy, my friend, my proudest accomplishment. He was ripped from my life because of senseless violence. If you knew Preston, you knew that he was the furthest thing from violent. And what happened to him was inconceivable. Preston was consistently committed to doing what was right. He had no enemies, and he was the last person to deserve such brutality inflicted upon him. The loss of Preston has dismantled my life, his sisters, his dad and stepmoms, his many friends, his grandparents, and many other whom he crossed paths with. Preston was a rare light in this world. He was a leader, not a follower, always helping others where he could, even if they were people he didn't know. Preston wasn't just my son, he was my heart, my best friend, and the light of my life. We were each other's biggest cheerleaders. He had the most thoughtful ear when it came to listening and talking about life. He always made sure to tell me how he did on a test or what grades he was getting. He was a responsible boy with high standards for himself. I raised Preston to achieve, to be kind, and to embrace a growth mindset. Now that he has been ripped away from my life, I long deeply for our conversations and to spend time with him. He had a rare gift for listening and for guiding others to make good decisions. He gave support to his friends without pause. Several of his friends' parents have reached out to tell me how much he has impacted their lives and helped them through tough times. Preston was witty and handsome. I remember looking at him one day and thinking, wow, you are just a cool kid. He was happy as he was. He had his own style and he was funny. He was not interested in partying and did not get into trouble. I told him almost daily how proud of him I was, and he would smile humbly and sometimes give me a hug. Preston was always an easy kid and made me so proud from the beginning.
From his birth to getting into kindergarten early as a boy, which is pretty unheard of with social and emotional skills, and throughout the rest of his schooling, he was considerate and respectful of his teammates and peers. His mind was so special and bright. He'd tackle math problems I couldn't even wrap my head around, and watching him excel made me so proud. He was chill and content, always calm during the hard times. We had wonderful times together as a family. Theme parks, playing football on the beaches in California, sports practices and games, holidays and movies. We were the three musketeers, just doing life together. These times will never be the same without Preston. There will always be a void. Preston was raised to be an exceptional young man, and now the world will never get to know him. He has been robbed of his most beautiful life, and it was taken maliciously, extinguished as if it held no value. An unthinkable act which the defendant is responsible for. Preston meant so much to so many, and none of this was considered as he was being beaten to death and left in the road to die. If I could go back and rewrite the chapter of this book of life and what my family has dealt with, there are so many questions, so many what ifs. The conversations Preston and I had in weeks prior, I was talking to him in the kitchen and happy that my 16-year-old son was engaging with me openly about myself going to parties when I was younger. We laughed and joked, connecting mom and son. Never in my right mind did I fathom something like this could happen to him. I followed him religiously on Life 360 and lived in a safe community. I recently shared with Preston that it gave me comfort to raise him in such a safe area. The defendant, along with others, came into my territory. In a familiar neighborhood, my son always felt safe and stole that safety and security from us. He stole a promise I kept to my son to always keep him safe. We are now forced to live an unrecognizable life without Preston. He attended his first party, happy and carefree and hanging out with his friends, and then never came home. I have been robbed of my main purpose in life, being Preston's mom. There will never be a love greater than the love I have for my son. As far as the loss my daughter has experienced by losing her little brother, this I will never comprehend fully. To see her pain and loss for him in her eyes is just an added layer to our family's grief. When she moved out in July 2023, headed to college, Preston got up early and helped her pack up the car. He was the most doting, caring brother. He looked at her with pride and awe, like he was glimpsing his own future. He loved his sister anything. He respected her and looked up to her more than anyone in this world. The bond the two of them shared was unwavering, built on love and trust. Now she and I pretend to be strong for one another. Preston's absence serves as a constant reminder of our pain. I was only able to spend a few months with Preston after his sister went to college. These times were filled with so much closeness and bonding between the two of us. I will cherish them in my heart for eternity. We had pizza on Wednesdays, golf cart rides, golf practice, and driving lessons. Preston reached milestones, and we shared so many special moments. I still remember the night of his junior homecoming, which was also his 16th birthday, September 23rd, 2023. He came into my room, laid on my bed, and told me it was one of the best days he'd ever had. Little did I know that over a month later, his precious, most beautiful life would be taken. One day I had a purpose to be a mom of two wonderful kids, and the next day I was an empty nester. One day I had a happy and healthy 16-year-old son, and the next day I saw him lifeless in a hospital bed. One day I was helping Preston get ready for homecoming, picking out his tie with excitement, and the next I was choosing the one that he would be buried in. No parent should ever have to endure this. I loved watching my son Preston on the basketball court, hooping, guarding, and pushing himself to improve. I loved playing horse, pig, and 1v1 with him in the driveway. I can still hear his basketball sneakers squeaking on the court and his ball hitting the backboard. Preston was a quiet, natural leader. He didn't chase the crowd. He didn't have to. He was headed towards a vibrant life full of promises, including a future college career, having his own family, and so much more left unknown. Those dreams have all been wiped away. I will never know the grandchildren he would have given me. His sister's children will never know their witty, smart, and loving Uncle Preston, or to be able to play with their cousins. I've never seen anyone connect with children the way Preston did. He had such a natural, gentle gift when it came to playing with kids. The impact of losing Preston has been relentlessly devastating. His sister fights to succeed in college, even through unbearable grief. His friends have shared their own struggles with sleep and the ability to manage their emotions. I have lost my identity as his mother and continue to struggle to keep going, even just to put one foot in front of the other. The pain is deep, constant, and overwhelming. To say that Preston is missed doesn't capture the depth of the hole in our hearts that remains forever. The world feels colorless without him in it. It's dull, sometimes senseless, and every day time moves forward. Well, it feels like I'm standing still in October of 2023. The day after Preston was attacked, we were set to carve pumpkins and eat chili as a family. This tradition never came to fruition. Preston's favorite season was fall because it was his birthday in September. I would decorate at the very start of the month so he could be surrounded by the decor. Now fall and Halloween both torment me. It reminds me of the sign my neighbors had to put on my door to explain to trick-or-treaters that we had a family emergency and that no one would be home. During what should have been a fun, lighthearted time, our family was in the hospital watching our beloved boy fight for his life. The night we got the call that Preston had been attacked, and I was told that he was beaten so badly that someone had to perform CPR to try to save him, my entire world shattered. I raced to Chandler Regional Hospital while pleading with the Uber driver to go faster as panic turned into shock. When we arrived, they took us into a little room. Immediately, by observing the look on my sister-in-law's face, who was a nurse, I knew this was the kind of room that no family ever wants to be brought into. The doctor explained due to the severities of his injuries, Preston would be air vac to Phoenix Children's Hospital. The next days were grueling with agony. I remember the hospital staff having us put up pictures of Preston and helping his sister make necklaces in distraction. We couldn't eat, and his dad slept on the floor. In my heart, I knew my son was already gone. For 9 months, I carried him. A lifetime, I loved him, and far too soon, I was forced to say goodbye to him. I laid his pig, his treasured stuffed animal that one of our dogs had chewed up that he still loved, next to him, knowing that he was fading from us. When they gave us the news that he could no longer hang on, that day was the first day I stopped believing, and I was forced to leave his side. This day would change my family's lives forever. Watching the color leave Preston's beautiful face didn't feel real. It still doesn't. The memory won't let me go. The idea that this defendant could carry out such a cruel and meaningless act on someone so undeserving as my son will disturb me forever, leaving me broken. Preston's last moments in the hospital will forever be etched in my memory. Seeing him in the condition he was in was my worst nightmare. I brushed the hair out of his face, but quickly put it back because that's the way that he liked to wear it. I kissed and traced every ounce of his face so I could hold on to every detail, so afraid of ever forgetting. I replay it over and over in my mind. I climbed into the hospital bed and held him for as long as I could. I dream of the sweet boy riding beside me in the golf cart, the upbeat young man walking across the stage at academic ceremonies, the wonderful, caring teammate calling plays in basketball, and the person so many turn to for strength. Preston gave so much and expected so little. In the weeks and months following my son's death, I lived in fear and consuming grief while remaining hidden from the world. We didn't know who had done this to him. We didn't know if they would hurt someone else. We had no answers, only pain, shock, and the agonizing silence of waiting. Waiting for justice, waiting for accountability, and waiting for the truth. We waited because nobody would come forward to admit what they had done to my son, including the defendant. And many others were bullied into silence. I was paralyzed, sleepless, hypervigilant, lost in disbelief that this was now my life. I didn't want or know how to live without my son. Preston was always the person who would reach out to help someone, no matter what their situation. As a mother, I want the defendant to know that his actions were callous, depraved, and heartless. Every part of me aches because the defendant had a choice, and he chose wrong over right. His actions show he chose to have no regard for human life. I've spent my adult life in a career supporting and helping young people struggling with social and emotional and behavioral challenges, and thus always taught Preston to lend a helping hand. You never know what somebody might be dealing with or going through. My son's kindness and willingness to help anyone in need far extended even to the it would have far extended even to the defendant if given the opportunity. Preston would have been his friend if he needed one. Each time we must speak about our loss, we are re-traumatized. Multiple people beating on one person is disgusting and cowardly. Imagining what Preston was thinking and enduring, and this cruelty shatters my heart, spirit, and clouds my sense of the world. The defendant acted without remorse, showing no regard for Preston's beautiful life or who his family was. The defendant deserves to be accountable to the highest degree and maximum sentence of 21 years for the magnitude of the incredible loss we have all suffered and the extreme light that he has diminished in this world. He deserves to be held fully accountable for the ongoing pain that he has inflicted upon our family and the community. The pain doesn't lessen, it deepens. Preston was an exceptional, rare human being with a kind, giving heart, a promising future, and a huge network of friends who loved him. He was an inspiration to so many, and his absence has left a hole that will never be filled. This is from something I wrote about Preston. Preston was our rainbow, steady, patient, and full of life. I love you always and forever, my beautiful boy, PL5.
Thank you, Honor. Your Honor, you've now heard about what the Zazek family went through. You've heard from Preston Lord's family, and it's clear that this is not an easy day. And in fairness, we know that it's not going to be an easy day for anybody in the courtroom. The defendant is 19 years old, and he's here today for crimes that he committed before he turned 18. And we recognize coming into this that the court is going to look at his age as a mitigating factor. That is what the law says. And it usually makes sense because immaturity and impulsivity often play a role in crimes that are committed by 17-year-olds. So why then is the state asking for the maximum term under the plea agreements? And the answer is simple. It's because when you look at the totality of what has occurred here and you look at the whole picture, this is not about immaturity. This was not a few isolated incidents of seeking attention and getting carried away with friends. It may have started out that way, but that is not what brings us into this courtroom today. We appreciate the context that the defense provided for what was going on in the life of William Hines in his teens and early teens. And it's clear that Mr. Hines has had problems with alcohol and drugs going back at least to 2021 when he was around 14 or 15 years old. So before his involvement in the legal system, there was that struggle. There had already been some interventions. There had already been some treatment that was described in the materials provided by the defense. But the story of why we're here today begins in November of 2022. William Hines turned 17 on November 26th of 2022. But 2 weeks before that, he got caught shoplifting. It was a misdemeanor. Police ended up at his house. They talked to him. They talked to his father. And it was clear that the matter was going to get referred to juvenile court. And that certainly can be an example of simple immaturity. However, I brought it out in the sentencing recommendation because it was a chance. It was something that could have been a wake-up call. This was, again, just before his 17th birthday. Apparently, though, it had no effect on him because less than 2 weeks later, he was then involved in a group attack. And that's that first aggravated assault case that you have, the Class 6. And I want to be very clear about this. When a group swarms, blitzes, and attacks a victim, even after the victim is on the ground, that is not a fight. That is not getting into a fight at a party. That is not mutual combat. That is a crime. And it's the kind of thing that he and his friends did multiple times. This overlapping group that you've heard about, the guys who became known as the Gilbert Goons. Now, on that incident, one would have hoped that the next day, when William sobered up and had a chance to think about what it is that he took part in the night before, he would have resolved right there and then that he is going to change his life, because it should have been another wake-up call, a wake-up call that he's on the wrong track. And that's especially true in that case because, as you know from the facts in the pre-sentence report, his friend had used brass knuckles on the victim that they targeted. So once learning, if he already didn't know when it was happening, again, that is something that really should have changed his course. But again, nothing about that experience changed him. And we know that because it was just days later, on December 2nd of 2022, again, he's on video, and this time he's punching another kid from behind. And when you look at the video, it's 9 times punching a kid while the kid was already being attacked by other accomplices. What you see on that video, and that was one of the videos that was submitted to the court, what you see there is not immaturity. It's something else. It's a lot more than just adolescent recklessness. Later that same month, the defendant is again.
That one. Yep.
I'll wait for that to get muted. Okay. So later that same month, the defendant is again committing a crime. And this time it involves a safe that had thousands of dollars in cash. It had been stolen, it appears, by his friends. It had other valuable items, and it was put into the vehicle that William was driving. And the vehicle he was driving was his mother's vehicle, so essentially he helped facilitate the theft. He'd be an accomplice. As you know, it was adjudicated in juvenile court as a facilitation to commit theft. What's important, though, for the chronology and for this court's determination of what's going on here is he gets arrested for his role in that crime. Again, it happens at the end of December, but the police show up and they arrest him in March of 2023. So again, we have another critical point, another wake-up call that we now know has no effect on him. Before he gets placed on probation for that crime, he's driving drunk and he smashes his dad's truck into Benjamin. So the defendant was there. He was on scene when another human being had to be removed from the vehicle that the defendant had plowed into. And then that victim had to get rushed in an ambulance to the hospital. He knew he did that. He knew he came close to causing another human being's death. And still, it wasn't enough to change. So it was a month after that collision. So now we're in August of 2023. That's when he gets put on probation for the case involving the stolen safe. So let's kind of take a break and see where we're at. It's August of 2023. He had been caught by police for the misdemeanor shoplifting. He got caught by police for his involvement in the case with the stolen safe. He's now been arrested for this drunken collision that he caused in July. And At this point, there's also been some previous interventions that were discussed in the defense materials. So August of 2023, he's now placed on probation. If there was ever a time in William Hines's life where he really needed to be turning things around and be on his best behavior, it is at that point going forward from August of 2023. But based on what is contained in the pre-sentence report, it appears that he just didn't care. Apparently, he hadn't paid a single dollar in the restitution for his juvenile case. He had reported no progress on obtaining his GED, and he had failed to complete his community service hours. So by October 28th of 2023, less than 3 months into his probation, he hasn't changed at all. He's still part of the same group of bullies. He's still drinking. And then there's Preston Lord, only 16 years old, who didn't do anything wrong at all. He's just trying to enjoy a Halloween party with his friends, something that should have been a good, memorable high school experience. Now, by the time William Hines shows up at that Halloween party, being an alcoholic and being an adolescent is no longer a persuasive mitigating factor. Drunk or not, William Hines made a choice. He chose to join in with his group of friends, chase down and beat Preston. The defendant knew that they had just beat this kid unconscious on the asphalt. Yet a few hours later, while Preston is dying in the hospital, the defendant continues to party like nothing ever happened. Preston's in the hospital. William Hines continues to party. And you have the videos that were submitted to the court when he continues to drive drunk, even though 4 months earlier, he nearly killed somebody doing the same thing. And when you're watching those videos, the thought should go through anybody's mind that either he or his friends who are in the car with him or a family driving home could be absolutely wiped out because he either cannot or he will not stop drinking. He will not stop getting drunk. And then within a few days, he knows that the boy that he and his friends attacked had died. This would be the ultimate wake-up call for any reasonable person, even an adolescent. And now, here we are today. Even after being arrested, even after being thrown in jail, he still cannot stop himself from drinking. And this time, as you have from the calls that the state submitted to you, we're talking about the homemade jail alcohol, known as hooch. So even in the most controlled of environments, William Hines still can't control himself. And I want to be clear about this. His addiction does not make him an inherently bad person. We're not saying it makes him an inherently cruel person. That is not what we're saying. But it does make him a dangerous person, a danger to himself and a danger to the public. So why then are we recommending the maximum term? Given these facts, this accumulation of circumstances, what are we supposed to do now? Yes, the defendant was 17 years old. On the other hand, Preston Lord was younger. He was 16 years old when his entire life was taken. And it is also true that William Hines is not the only person responsible for Preston Lord's death. We know that. But when you acknowledge that, there is a corresponding aggravating factor there, and that is the presence of accomplices. In fact, it is the group criminality that led to Preston's death. It was the same type of mentality that was on display on October 28th that you also see in those two other aggravated assault cases that he's now pled guilty to. So now, probably one of the hardest things to judge in this case is the issue of remorse. For example, in the vehicular case, the body camera footage from the July crash, it shows the defendant on the scene as the police arrive, and it's clear that he is very upset. And there are two things that William Hines is expressing emotion about. And in fairness, one of them is that he is asking about whether the other driver is okay, which would be Benjamin. But then the problem is that alongside of that, in the same sort of, I don't know if it's within 5 or 10 minutes or around or even less, he's expressing a lot of emotion about the fact that it is his dad's truck and his dad is strict and his parents are going to be so mad. So it's hard to judge what level of remorse and empathy William Hines has. Those who evaluated William Hines that are referred to in the defense materials, they clearly believe that he is remorseful for those that he harmed. And when the defendant was in the courtroom at the time that he did his change of plea, he read a letter and he seemed sincere when he expressed remorse. Of course, since that time, we realize there is a huge, huge problem with that expression of remorse. And the reason is because the same letter also included an expression of being sober for a significant period of time, as well as what sounded like a very sincere commitment to staying sober. And we now know that that part, which the state submits as a very important component of the statement that he made to the court, that part was not true. Now, what we hear in the jail calls that contradicts it, the question arises, does that invalidate either all or some of his expressions of remorse? That's something that the court will have to consider. But there is a larger point to be made here. Whatever level of remorse William Hines might have, it wasn't enough to change him. We know how powerful an alcohol or a drug addiction can be, and we know that in many cases in the criminal justice system, it can be a mitigating factor. But in the case of William Hines, it should not, at this point, be a mitigating factor. And part of the reason is because we now have all of these warning signs. We have all of these red flags that we have to take note of. We're on notice of how police at his doorstep, that's not going to be enough for him to change. We're on notice that severely injuring someone in a car crash, that was not enough to change him. We're on notice that being on probation is not enough to change him. We're on notice that even the knowledge of Preston Lord's death, and then even being locked up in jail, nothing is causing the change that needs to happen. And based on the jail calls that we submitted to the court, he does not intend to stop the alcohol, and it sounds like also some substance abuse. And if he doesn't intend to stop it, which is the evidence that we're now considering, then that is precisely what renders him so dangerous when he's back out in the community. So what we're left with is a young man who has left a path of destruction behind him, and he is just not changing course. So in the case ending in 6240, that's the vehicular case, Benjamin Zazik suffered very serious physical harm. And that is an aggravating factor that is far heavier than any mitigation that exists in this case. As you heard, 4 months of memory loss It's a gap. It's gone. You heard about how he had to learn how to speak again, learn how to walk. That aggravating factor is entitled to very great weight. And it's especially true, Your Honor, when you think about how hard the recovery was, not just for Benjamin, but for his family. It's clear that it was not just... It's clear, Your Honor, that Benjamin was not the only one who felt the impact of that crash. And what his mother described in court today is truly extraordinary. Then, in the case ending 6528, Preston Lord's case, the emotional anguish of Preston Lord's family by itself outweighs all of the mitigation. And I would point out that that emotional harm, you can almost see it, that it has a physical component to it. The effect that it has on them, the effect I think you heard about sleep, all of that, it is not just the emotional pain, it's almost a physical pain. The family has been coming to court date after court date, whether they appear in person or whether they appear virtually. Every single time, it's reopening that wound. And that memorial video that we all just watched, that only scratches the surface of what the family has lost, because that video cannot show the future. It can't show what Preston was going to become. There's also, Your Honor, the presence of accomplices as an aggravating factor in this case. And this is very important because it represents what the defendant and his friends were doing. They attack in numbers. They attack in numbers. So the presence of accomplices is another very important aggravating factor. So, Your Honor, however you choose to fashion the prison sentences today, whether it's concurrent, whether it's consecutive, we are asking that you impose the sentence that will provide the most deterrence. We're asking that you provide the sentence that will provide the most protection for the community and one that punishes the defendant appropriately for the totality of harm that he has caused. And for those reasons, we recommend the maximum total term of 21 years in prison, followed by the probation tails in the 2 aggravated assault class 6 cases. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Green. All right.
Judge, for the defense, we have 2 speakers before I plan to make my presentation. Our first speaker is going to be Owen's mother, Laura Hines.
Thank you.
I'm Laura Hines, and Owen is my son. When Owen was born, he was my miracle baby. Bringing him into the world was not easy. I suffered 3 miscarriages and years of infertility tests and treatment. We had almost given up hope. When he was born, healthy, perfect, and beautiful, we were overjoyed. Owen has always been a very sensitive, loving, affectionate person. If he was sitting next to one of us on the couch watching TV, he would have to be cuddling or at least have a foot on my lap. He loved making friends and his music together and jamboree classes. When he was 6, he started flag football, and that became a huge part of his life. He loved being on a team. He loved his teammates and coaches. It was something he excelled at. After struggling in school with severe ADHD, anxiety, and depression, and it gave him confidence and community. There were many events that seemed to set Owen on the wrong path. Football was taken away by a bad concussion his freshman year. COVID lockdown had a negative effect on his schoolwork and his mental health. Our divorce in 2022 was hard for him. On April 3rd, 2023, we lost my dad after a heart attack. Losing Papa devastated all of us. Papa was Owen's #1 babysitter, one of his biggest cheerleaders at all of his football games, and someone who was always there for Owen. I don't think any of us have been the same since. We were grieving, and I was struggling to deal with my own grief and depression while adjusting to working full-time for the first time since my kids were born, which left me physically and emotionally exhausted. It ended up being the worst year of our lives for many reasons. While he has been in jail, I have seen so much growth and maturity in my son. I'm always amazed at how his attitude stays positive. He has found a strong relationship with God, which I think helps. He is reading the Bible and praying and listening to sermons online. He has been reading self-improvement books and journaling to help heal his past hurts and get past his shame caused by his actions. He is determined to become a man we can be proud of and to never repeat the actions that brought us to this place. We can't change the horrible events that took place in 2023 as much as I wish we could, but we as a family are going to do everything we can to help Owen in his growth and recovery. As his mother, I will continue to be his emotional support person. I will encourage him and whatever I can do to see that he follows through with his plans to earn his GED, learn as many trades as he can to be a productive citizen, and to continue his journey with Christianity and healing. I will encourage him to participate in programs like Celebrate Recovery while he is away, and even attend with him when he gets home. His recovery and sobriety will be a lifelong focus for us. I know that Owen hurts badly from the pain he has caused. I also know who he is inside his heart and soul. His actions do not reflect his heart. The real Owen is not the teen who made a terrible choice to drive under the influence, causing the accident that injured Benjamin. Owen is the young man who ran from his damaged truck to the other car and was frantically yelling for someone to help Ben while trying to open the door. Owen in his soul is not the person who kicked Preston. He is the person who immediately stopped and was begging the others to stop. He is the young man who is living with his remorse, shame, and pain. He is the young man who is actively and determinedly seeking ways to never repeat the mistakes of his past. He wants to turn his life around. To Ben and the Zazik family, I am so sorry for the pain and fear that you had to suffer. I prayed for Ben and was so grateful when I heard he was recovering. I hope the future brings you happiness and health. To the Lord family, there will never be the right words to convey how deeply I hurt for you. You and your beautiful son, Preston, will continue to be on my mind and in my prayers for the rest of my life. I am so sorry for all that you've had to endure, and I pray for peace and healing for you all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Judge, our next speaker is Owen's father, William Hines.
Your Honor.
Hello, sir.
Thank you. I'm reading this for the simple reason that I do not want to misspeak or forget to say anything that is important to me. So if it sounds scripted, that's not my intention. The position I find myself in is very difficult, as I love Owen and Jack, both my boys, more than anything in the world. For the reasons we are here today, the combination of being upset, horrified, embarrassed, and dismayed all at the same time, while also feeling compelled to help my oldest son, Owen, as much as I can, is a true duality. To the families affected by Owen's actions, I would like to apologize. To Benjamin and his family, I am very sorry for Owen's decisions that night of the car accident. Please accept my sincere apologies. To Preston's family, I don't even know how to begin to express our apologies. If I could say sorry 1,000 times, I would. On behalf of our entire family, I offer our sincerest apologies and sincerest condolences. Your Honor, although Owen had veered off course over the last few years, made huge mistakes, he is taking responsibility for what he has done. As his father, I can explicitly say that he is a compassionate and remorseful human being. Owen has a big heart, and he does feel very deeply. I've seen this time and time again throughout his life. One example I would like to share was during a football game in high school. Owen had made a tackle, and a boy was injured. The following day, I asked Owen if he had heard anything about the boy, and he said, "Oh yeah, I figured out who he was. I reached out, instant messaged him, make sure he was okay." The gesture was all Owen's action. As his father, I can attest to this sensitive and compassionate side of Owen throughout his years. Again, that's just one example. Your Honor, Owen wants to take responsibility for what he has done to others. I think he is saying, "I don't know how I got here. I don't like where I've been. I'd like to fix it and make positive changes within myself." Regardless, he is taking responsibility for his actions and wanting to make amends. I'd like to close my statement today by saying that it is not lost on me for 1 minute that the Lord family is going to continue to come down here to the courts and go through these hearings week after week and month after month. It is absolutely heart-wrenching, and I wish them Godspeed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Judge, I will just need a minute to set up.
Okay.
I think you just need the HDMI cord. I think you just need the HDMI cord.
Judge, anytime that we're at a sentencing, it always means that something bad has happened. And you've presided over many, many cases, and you know that there's a scale as to where we're at a sentencing. And this is clearly on the high end. What's happened to these families today is absolutely terrible and horrific. And we're learning still today how Owen's actions over 2022 and 2023 have affected these families, and it clearly has a lasting impact on them. But by the same token, we are also at a sentencing because Owen stepped up and took responsibility for his actions and the part that he played in all of this and why we're here today. He pleaded guilty, and he's the first one to do so. And I think it's worth spending some time to talk about the unique circumstances of how we got here as well and how he changed his plea. We did a settlement conference with Your Honor, and you learned about the plea offer before Owen did. Owen learned about that plea offer, and 2 hours later, he was in court and accepted and entered it. Those circumstances demonstrate overt willingness to take responsibility. There was no hesitation on Owen's part. He stepped up and he took responsibility. And there are topics that we need to discuss in this case that are at the forefront. It's important that we spend time talking about them, but I want to make clear that when I talk about these are not an excuse, and it in no way justifies Owen's actions. And it certainly does not minimize the harm of the consequences of what he's done. But it is context, because we don't arrive here in a vacuum. An 18-year-old doesn't just face murder charges. A 19-year-old doesn't just get sentenced for those same murder charges. Owen was 16 or 17 years old at either time of all of these offenses. And that has an impact in these cases. Teenagers are different. It's biological fact that teenage brains, adolescent brains, and circuitry and anatomy are tilted towards intensity, emotion, lack of self-regulation, and recklessness. And those things happen, and I don't want to get too into the weeds into this, but frankly, what's going on is that teenagers, their prefrontal cortexes are underdeveloped. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that makes an adult an adult. It's in charge of executive functioning. While at the same time, the subcortical region of the brain, the animal part of the brain, is highly developed, highly primed for emotion and reward processing. And so what does that look like in the real world for someone Owen's age? Well, it means that they lack future orientation. They don't consider the consequences of their actions, even though it's hitting them in the face. It sounds like 5 times in this case. It makes them more vulnerable to peer influence, especially negative peer influence, which again is happening in this case at least 3 times. Teens are also less risk averse. They're primed to seek the reward and not the consequences. And the connections between Owen's cases and all of the uncontroverted scientific evidence about juveniles' brains are demonstrated in all of Owen's cases. It bears the hallmarks of immaturity, risk-taking, impulsiveness, and vulnerability to peer influence. At the settlement conference, we discussed how Owen, again, working with a group, being in a group, acting as a follower, jumps into these fights. And the reason why is his nuclear family life is falling apart. He's experiencing tough losses, and he's looking for acceptance in all of the wrong places. And he found it in a group that likes to fight, likes to drink, likes to use drugs. And that's how we end up here. And I can understand a tendency or an inclination to want to roll your eyes at this and say that this is not an explanation. Owen is something different. And I can understand that. I think that when we look back at our teenage selves, or maybe we think of a teen that we know now, and it sounds like someone like Preston would never be in Owen's shoes, would never be in this situation, facing a murder charge, a terrible car accident case, and other group assault cases. But I think if we really take a hard look at our adolescent years, I think there are times when we were growing up, things could have gone seriously wrong, if not for a near miss, dumb luck, or divine providence. And I think it's important to recognize that in some ways, if we came out of our teenage years unscathed, we're incredibly lucky. And I think we are also incredibly lucky for some of the older folks in the room that frankly, we didn't record everything and put it on Snapchat. But nonetheless, immaturity is not the only thing that's going on in Owen's cases. We also have someone who is using substances at the same time. And of course, experimenting as a teen is normal, but that's not what we have here. And Mr. Green discussed it beforehand, but we have someone who was drinking near daily at age 15. That is someone who is an alcoholic. And I think it shows that something is deeply wrong, but it also raises the concern that this is also something that's highly complex, and sometimes it might need more treatment than we think. What's happening in Owen's case and his alcohol use is not normal. This is what we have here. And the state showed you these photographs in their sentencing memo, and these are screenshots from some of the videos that they sent you. And they're telling you that this is a person who is a danger to society because of his addiction. I see a teenager who doesn't know what to do, who's self-medicating because of trauma and anxiety, blunting those emotions, and doesn't know what to do. And that's compounded by his immaturity. And not to mention the profound effects that drinking alcohol has on a juvenile's brain. It's very complex, but to put it simply, it's like pressing the pause button. But it also has effects on memory and cognition, which also could potentially play in a part why Owen is just not getting the point yet. But I look at this and it's sad and it's embarrassing, but also this is someone who can be treated and still deserves treatment. And that's better for our society. And like life, you know, this is not all black and white. There are shades of gray. And that's the same for Owen. It's not black and white. There are some good things and there are some bad things. And one big thing about him is that Owen came forward on November 1st, 2023. That was 2 days after Preston Lord was taken off life support. And I think that this might be an inconvenient fact for the Queen Creek Police Department. Sergeant Uribe wrote a letter in the pre-sentence report. I've done homicide cases and it's not, I wouldn't say it's rare, but you know, it's not something that's usually done in a case where a case agent is writing something. But what she writes in her letter is that instead of making the conscious choice to contact detectives, it took the detectives knocking on Owen's door with a search warrant before he provided any information. Queen Creek Police Department's own reports in this case demonstrate that that's just not true. Owen and his family on November 1st, 2023 had a meeting with his juvenile probation officer, and they told his probation officer that he was at that party and he was drinking, knowing that that would be a violation of his probation alone, but he also said that he had information. His juvenile probation officer called the Queen Creek Police Department that same day and left a message, and that redacted part in this, that's Owen's phone number so that the Queen Creek Police Department could call Owen. Again, that same day, Owen's father, William, who you heard from, he himself called the Queen Creek Police Department to facilitate his son giving information to the police department. At the time, Owen is still 17, and many of the juvenile witnesses in this cases had a parent there to referee with the police. So just because Owen didn't call himself, he and his family are trying to come forward and to provide information. And so when the sergeant is writing that Owen's actions and his silence can't be ignored, well, the natural corollary to that as well is that him coming forward likewise can also not be ignored. We also need to address the elephant in the room, which is Owen's jails calls. And the state's argument, and I can understand where they're coming from, is that Owen isn't taking this seriously. He's not changed. What is it going to take? He's not dedicated to sobriety. And it also undercuts his remorse. But the 7 jail calls that they gave you don't define who Owen is. They don't define his range of emotions, and they also do not define his remorse. Owen is still genuinely remorseful about his terrible actions that forced us into a sentencing today. And Mr. Green aptly put, right, that you would think that getting arrested, being placed on probation, going to court, being placed in jail, going to prison, you would hope that that would be enough. But jail, prison, arresting somebody, unfortunately, it's not a magic wand. As much as we would want those things to be, those things alone don't fix people and they don't fix their problems. And so Owen is in jail for 14 months, something that no one wants to do, wants to be in. He's realizing very early on that he's going to prison in these cases. And that's terrifying. That's terrifying for adults, but it's terrifying for an 18 and a 19-year-old whose brain is just like a 16 or a 17-year-old. And so what is he doing? He's talking to his friends on the phone and he's trying to impress them, these same people who still got him into these situations. He's coping with the trauma. He's puffing his chest. And frankly, that's a lot from what he's learning in his pod. Owen is held in a protective custody pod and he's housed with much older offenders. And these offenders are facing the death penalty. These are also offenders who are brought back from prison to jail because they're committing crimes in prison. And unfortunately, that is the culture of the pod. You just can't cry in jail. You can't do those things. It's also, in a sense, it's disingenuous as well to say that he's not remorseful, not truly remorseful. Because when you pick 7 calls, you can create a narrative, any narrative. If I just showed you a couple of calls and said, you know, he was a perfect angel baby, that wouldn't be the true story because there's a duality to this person. But there are some calls that the state didn't direct you to when Owen is on the phone talking.
I've been having a rough time at night though.
Have you?
Yeah.
Because you're alone?
No, it's because I feel guilty about a lot of stuff. I was a very stubborn motherfucker. And it took this, and it took all of this to get out of that stubbornness. And it should not have took this. It should have I should have listened to all the warning signs. The first time I got arrested should have been enough. And no, I didn't listen. Then I got in a car accident. That should have been enough. No, I didn't listen. And now I'm in jail for this, which is so fucked up. It should not have took all of that.
And there's no sugarcoating it, Judge, that these calls, the ones that the state brought to your attention, they're difficult to listen to. And frankly, I would want someone to do better, but they don't change the fact that Owen is a minimal participant in the homicide case. It also doesn't change the fact that he came forward 2 days after Preston Lord passed away and died, where he tried to give information. And it also doesn't change that on November 7th, he admitted his guilt and his involvement to a detective. And it also doesn't change the fact that he is the first person to take responsibility in this case and plead guilty. The state is asking for 21 years. And I want to address the aggravating factors that the state has put on the record. The first is the harm to the victims, which is clear and it is weighty and it cannot be understated. There's also the presence of an accomplice in at least 3 out of 4 of Owen's cases. But these aggravating factors are going to be applicable to each and every defendant who is in that Preston Lord case. Is the state going to recommend the maximum for everybody? I don't know, because that's going to be in the future when those people either accept a plea agreement or they go to trial. But what we have here is a sentencing, and you're going to have to decide, and I don't envy you because Owen is the first one to go. But I can think of one differentiating factor from Owen from his other defendants, and that's his specific actions in each of these cases. So what did Owen do in these cases? And I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about it, but I don't want to go deep into the facts about this. But in the car accident case with Benjamin, what happened to him is terrible, but it was an unintentional injury. And he also stayed at the scene. In the aggravated assault cases, again, we have someone who is acting like a follower, and he's jumping into these fights after they've already started. He's not the one who's starting them. And thankfully, he's not the one who's using the weapons and the brass knuckles. And now let's get to the homicide case. In the state's sentencing recommendation, they said that the state and the defense disagree on the extent of Owen's conduct in that case. And that's fine. We can disagree about that, but the court should decline any sort of invitation to sentence Owen more harshly based on speculation, especially when we have evidence about what he did in this case. This is a screenshot from an interrogation that Owen participated in, or an interview that Owen participated in with Detective Shipman. During that interview, he told Detective Shipman that he kicked Preston Lord right after Preston Lord fell to the ground. He believed he kicked him in the leg, but he also fully realized it also could have been his stomach. He said he thought he kicked him once, but he also, the detective threw out, maybe you kicked him 3 times, and he agreed, and he said, it's possible that I kicked him 3 times. But he also said that he realized Preston Lord was unconscious right after he kicked him, and he stopped what he was doing, and he tried to stop others as well. And there's no evidence refuting what Owen said to the detective about what he did. In fact, we have corroborating evidence. We have Jack Woods saying that he heard someone yell, "He's out." And then we have Luke Odell, who says that Owen was freaking out after this happened. And he said, I don't know why he told the detectives that Owen said, I don't know why everyone was kicking his head. I only kicked him in the stomach. That corroborates what Owen's involvement is in the Preston Lord case. From a public safety standpoint, 21 years is also excessive. One of the hardest things to talk about in homicide sentencings, and it's a fact that just cannot be ignored, and it's something that is routinely talked about, is that the defendant, same thing with Owen, he's going to be able to walk out of prison one day when Preston is no longer with us and won't have that opportunity. And I don't mean to sound callous about this, but because Owen is young and because he will get out of prison, the court does have to carefully consider the length of the prison sentence in this case. A big reason why is because even under the shortest sentence available under this plea, Owen's going to be at least 26 years old when he's released. And 26 years is an important number. The reason for that is because the people who committed crimes as juveniles, that's the age, 25, 26, when they figure things out and they get their lives together. And so potentially maybe some additional time is warranted from the court's perspective, but there also needs to be a realization that there's a delicate balance, because unduly long prison sentences could potentially increase Owen's risk of being back before this court again. It's going to be less time for him to find a job and to do those things, like start a family. I know that Preston won't be able to do those things, but those are important things for Owen and our community, because those are the reasons why people don't commit crimes, is because they have jobs, they have families, these pro-social roles. And frankly, the longer that Owen is in prison, it makes it less likely that he can do those things, and no one wants to see him back here. The other factor is deterrence. And what deterrence is, it's not deterrence for the person, but it's also general deterrence. The idea is that if you sentence someone harshly, it sends a message to other people, don't do this same exact crime, because you're also going to be punished harshly. And I think the state and the defense are going to have some philosophical disagreements about that, but we can talk about the propriety and the effectiveness of that idea in Owen's sentence. And that's because, really the literature and studies have shown that general deterrence is not a super effective way to deter the public from committing the crime. And the reasons why are because, one, they have to know that they're going to get caught, but then also they need to know what the consequence or the punishment is going to be. And so when we think about juveniles who don't consider future consequences, are risk averse, they don't think they're going to get caught, they don't know the consequences, it's not going to be very effective to deter other juveniles from committing these certain crimes, because they're not thinking about what happens next. They just do, unfortunately. They just act the way that they act. And that's also true for serious crimes. Potentially, I think there are other ways that would be more effective, and I think it would have an immediate effect, something that might be within Queen Creek Police Department's purview and control. They might be able to increase policing, increase their presence in the area, which I think I have seen some recent news reporting that might be going on, at least in Gilbert, with officers in the schools and being there. But I think that increased presence could also serve a function for the kids to see, that the police are here and they're going to catch me. That has a bigger effect on reducing juvenile crime than throwing the book at Owen. The next thing that this court is going to have to decide is whether you're going to run the sentences in the aggravated assault car accident case and the homicide case, whether those are going to be concurrent or consecutive. We're asking for a concurrent sentence, and we have highlighted some factors that we believe support that sentence. In 3 out of the 4 cases, Owen pleaded up to the charge. He didn't get a reduction of his charge in each of those cases. For the aggravated assault cases, his pleas are harsher than usual in those cases. In typical defendants who are not, all in this East Valley teen violence problem, typically the offer would be a misdemeanor. In the aggravated assault case, which is the car accident, car collision case, that plea is also harsher than normal. Obviously, Ben suffered some very, very serious injuries. Even with serious injuries like that, prison is often inescapable in these sorts of cases, but we're definitely not pleading to a dangerous crime. It's typically non-dangerous and the prison term is less. In that car accident case as well, there was a substantial civil settlement outside of court. And I don't mean that to mean that makes Benjamin whole or his family whole. And it doesn't mean that Owen does not deserve to be punished, but it separates him from others, because I'm sure when the court has provided or presided over other cases, you've seen cases where defendants have maimed victims and then they can't pay them back and they're just left in the lurch. Benjamin and his family deserve every penny from that civil settlement, but it's something that should be considered when we're talking about concurrent versus consecutive sentences. Additionally, and a fact that's not lost on Owen is that he pled to 2 dangerous offenses. And so for Owen, what happens if he commits a future serious offense? He's facing mandatory life imprisonment. And that's a huge motivator for him to change his behavior. But it also shows too that he's getting double punishment. He is, even with concurrent sentences. I want to conclude my remarks by talking about Owen's prospect for rehabilitation. And Owen he's an excellent prospect for rehabilitation. 2 big reasons why. One is that juveniles, for all of the time that I've really frankly spent ragging on them and all the ways that they act bad, they also have tremendous capacity for change. The other thing too is that most juvenile offenders, when they grow up, they just stop committing crime. And that's true even for juveniles who commit serious offenses just like Owen. And so he's probably going to follow the majority. The other thing is that Owen has tremendous support, tremendous family support. He comes from a good family with good people, and they tried to get him help. They tried to get him treatment, and it's not their fault that it didn't stick. But they too, like Owen, are realizing the magnitude of his addiction and how he's going to have to deal with it for a lifetime. And they're committed to helping him with that, and they will support him when he's released. The big key for Owen is his sobriety. And the state has made that clear. And it's obvious that the key for Owen to not be back here is for him to be sober. And in that regard, while prison is not ideal, it's a lot better than jail. And the reason why is because there's a lot more programming and resources in prison. He'll be able to take classes, he can learn a trade, do therapy. Those things are not available in jail. And so that's important because it will help educate Owen, who is still ignorant about his addiction, but it also gives him reasons to choose sobriety. And Judge, before I have Owen come up here and make his statement, I do want to acknowledge that no one wins today, and I wouldn't want to be in your position today. I myself am deeply sorry for what has happened to the families that are here today. And nothing that happens here will ever, ever, ever make them whole, and it won't bring back their loved one.
All right. I think we need to take a break before we hear from Mr. Hines.
Okay.
So let's take a 10-minute break. The court will stand in recess until 3.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
8001 and 105-174-003. These are all State of Arizona versus William Owen Hines. Record will reflect the presence of counsel. Mr. Hines is with us with his counsel as well. And the families and victims are here as well. All right. Does Mr. Hines wish to be heard?
He does, yes.
Okay.
This year and a half has been very painful for everyone involved. There isn't one day that goes by that I don't think about that night. I saw the ambulance behind us as I was leaving and immediately knew something was wrong. I felt a lot in that moment. Despite being very intoxicated, I remembered everything. When I saw the news, I knew I needed to let somebody know my involvement. Though I was hesitant, though I knew I would do time, I knew undoubtedly that it was the right thing for me to do. I was not raised to tattle. I was raised to admit when I'm wrong, and I was definitely wrong. I'm here today to take full accountability for my wrongdoing and my own actions. I acted as a follower and not a leader, and that will now result in me doing time in ADOC. I should have learned from many past mistakes, but I was blinded and still am blinded by addiction and stubbornness. I should have asked for help, but the past is the past, and there is no way to change it. All I can do is move forward, better myself, and keep doing positive things. Alcohol was my way to cope for 3 years. The moment I drank that first drink and realized how much happier I felt, I was hooked. The pain of my first relationship issues on top of my grandpa dying in psychosis aftermath made life feel almost unbearable. The only thing I knew worked was party and drink. Little did I know I had so many resources I just didn't know how to ask. My friends and family have shown me that there is nothing wrong with asking for help when you need it. When I get to DOC, I'm going to apply myself. And once I finish my education, I'm going to do hands-on trade programs, as well as the available drug and mental health classes, so that once I get out, I can be a safe and productive member of the community and complete probation without issue. And for Ben, there was a very large chance that things could have played out differently on July 6, 2023. There's no explanation or excuse to make as to why I was driving with any percentage of alcohol in my system that night. For any nights, that is. The very thought of that alone is one of many that leave me sleepless during the night. I pray that recovery has been swift and that God will continue to take care of you and that you will still one day be able to do the things that you want to do to the fullest extent. Follow your dreams and never stop fighting. And for the Lord family, although I did not know Preston personally, he seemed to be an astounding man, a kind soul senselessly taken from this world. He didn't deserve not one of those kicks or punches. This act of violence has now left a man without a son, a sister without a brother, and a father without his boy. I have realized it would be wrong to ask for forgiveness when this family has already had so much taken from them. They owe me nothing. However, I owe them everything. I am committed to discovering how I can better control the actions that I make and to continue to make the world around me a better place. I am truly very sorry. Thank you.
All right. All right. Any legal costs?
No, Judge.
All right. Thank you. All right. Folks, just a word about how the pronouncement of sentencing works. The court must consider aggravating factors, which the state has capably pointed out, and mitigating factors, which Mr. Hines's attorneys have capably pointed out as well. And the law has what we call presumptive sentences, and I consider aggravation and mitigation and decide where within a particular range available to the court the sentence should lie. When we speak in these terms, I realize that's not very comforting to you folks. And I wanted, before I do that, I did want to point out a couple things that struck me. Mr. Lord used the words tragic and senseless. And this, if ever there was a case that is tragic and senseless, this is it. I believe it was Ms. Golubovich who said no one wins in these kinds of cases, and that's entirely true. It's simply a matter of, sadly, trying to mitigate the losses that all you folks have experienced. So while what we do here today may not, let me put it this way. We use legal terminology, but it is my most sincere hope that what we do here today is the first step for all of you on the road to healing and finding peace with the terrible things, the tragic and senseless things that have happened. All right. Mr. Hines, in these four matters, back on March 4th, you pled guilty in each case. I believe the pleas were accepted at that time. If they were not, I'm accepting them now, and they are entered of record. Based on your guilty pleas in this case, or these cases, I should say, in the matter that ends in 528, it is the judgment of the court that you are guilty of count 2 as amended, manslaughter, a class 2 felony that is classified as dangerous and non-repetitive. That was committed on October 28, 2003. In the matter ending in 240, it is the judgment of the court that you are guilty of count 1, aggravated assault, a class 3 felony committed on July 6, 2023. Also classified as dangerous and non-repetitive. In the matter ending in 048, based on your guilty plea, it is the judgment of the court that you are guilty of count 2, aggravated assault, a class 6 designated felony committed on November 22, 2022. It's classified as non-dangerous and non-repetitive under Arizona's sentencing code. And in the matter ending in 174003, it is the judgment of the court that you're guilty of count 2, aggravated assault, and also a class 6 designated felony, also non-dangerous and non-repetitive offense. In preparing for sentencing, the court has considered a number of things. And first, before I list those things, I want to thank the attorneys for their excellent advocacy in this matter. It was very, very well done. Everything that I've received. I have, of course, reviewed the plea agreements and the agreements of the parties in there. I've reviewed the state sentencing recommendation to include the jail calls and videos that the state asked the court to consider. I've considered all of the victim statements, both here today and in writing. There have been two sentencing memoranda, mitigation memoranda submitted on behalf of Mr. Hines. I've considered those as well as, and those included some psychological testing and reports, as well as some thoughtful letters from Mr. Hines's family and friends. So I've considered all of that as well. All right, in two of these matters, and that's specifically the matters ending in 528 and the matter ending in 240. Probation is not available, given that those are dangerous offenses, and certainly they're not. Probation would not be appropriate. In the other two cases, I will place Mr. Hines on probation, as that has been agreed upon, and I think it will provide him with some helpful structure upon his release from prison. I mentioned earlier the aggravating and mitigating circumstances. I'm going to focus on the manslaughter and the aggravated assault cases in terms of aggravators and mitigators. Certainly in the vehicular matter, there was a significant injury to the victim for Mr. Zizik, 4 months memory loss, traumatic brain injury. Thankfully, probably doesn't even begin to cover it. Somewhat miraculously, he's made an excellent recovery so far, and it's my understanding his prognosis is good. Nonetheless, we are all lucky he's alive. And clearly that had an extraordinary impact on his family as well. In the manslaughter case, there's been a tremendous impact on Mr. Lord's family. The matter was done with accomplices as well. And again, substantial impact on the victim's family. There are a number of mitigating factors as well, which I will discuss. Your age at the time of these offenses is important. We do, the literature, medical literature tells us that a person's brain is not fully formed until they're 25 years old. And this is, and that helps explain a lot of bad decisions by youthful folks. So certainly your age is an important consideration here. You have on a number of occasions shown remorse, particularly right after the accident with Mr. Zizik. You were honest with the police, and you accepted responsibility in several respects. I like to think that I'm a really good mediator, and that I wish I could take credit for how well your settlement conference went. But the fact of the matter is that in many years on the bench, I don't know that I've seen someone more anxious to plead guilty and accept responsibility. So that certainly speaks well for your prospects. A couple of things that we haven't talked about that I think are worth discussing. A lot of educational difficulties that seemed that the schools weren't on top of, to some trauma within your family and from family members inflicted on you. You've also shown the ability to get employment at times, and you certainly have the support of your family. That's important because you will need it when you're released. Everyone does, but it's very important. So it's good to know that is there for you. I'll start with the aggravated assault case. So this is the matter. Well, this is the dangerous. This is the matter ending in 240. As to that matter, well, before I do that, I did want to point out in the manslaughter case, it's a slightly different calculus because that did involve accomplices. It's important, I think, to point out that you were, what's been reported to me and the evidence available indicates that you were very much a lesser participant in that tragic and senseless outcome. So with respect to the aggravated assault, the court finds that with regard to that offense, the mitigating factors slightly outweigh the aggravating factors, and it is the judgment of the court that you be committed to the Department of Corrections for 5 years in that manner. And that is, as to that matter, you will receive credit for 441 days of time served. Turning to the manslaughter case, on this one was second in time, and it is a slightly different calculus. I find less mitigation there. There's still a lot of mitigation, but it's hard to give the same weight to the mitigation after all of these wake-up calls that you just did not, regrettably, you just did not act on. So with regard to the manslaughter, it is, and this is with regard to count 2 as amended in the matter ending in 528, it is the judgment of the court that you be sentenced to a term of 12 years in the Department of Corrections. That is slightly greater than the presumptive term, and that sentence will run consecutively to your sentence in the manslaughter case. All right, now I will turn to the other 2 cases. These are the probation matters. These are the matters that you're going to be on probation. Well, after you're released from prison, you'll be on probation. And as I said earlier, that it's important, it's good for you. There'll be plenty of services available for you. And we'll talk about some of that in terms of the terms of your probation.
I think it's only on the vehicular case right now. Judge, real quick, I think I may have misheard, but the manslaughter sentence would be running consecutive to the aggravated assault
Correct.
sentence. Okay.
Correct. And I'm sorry if I misspoke. All right. So as to both of the probation matters, Mr. Hines, I'm giving you the standard supervised probation terms. There's a couple to keep in mind that I'll highlight. You're not to have any contact with the victims in any form. This almost goes without saying, but it will be a term of your probation. I will not consume or possess alcoholic beverages, and you shall complete substance abuse treatment, including relapse prevention and aftercare. So those are the terms that I'll highlight in both of the probation matters. And I will say, I've been at this for a long time, and I don't know that I can recall, and I was on a criminal assignment for 7 years before this case, and I don't know that I've ever seen anyone whose mental health problems are so profoundly affected by alcohol abuse and drug abuse. And we can debate the amount of insight you have into that. The state certainly debates it. I think you have some, but you got a long way to go. And so it's very important that you do whatever you can do in custody to get yourself ready when you're released, because you cannot drink. It's a miracle you're alive. It's a miracle Mr. Zizik is alive. Those aren't just terms of probation. That's going to be key for you just to survive, just to live any kind of normal life. So please do what you can, do everything you can, and then some. All right. There's financial aspects to all of these things as well. There's probation service fee of $65, $9.
All right, I want to stop it there just because I'm not really concerned with the, all the surcharges and things like that. But I guess, he was facing 21 years. The judge gave him 17 years. The lowest he could have received was 12. So I guess it's a little more than half way between. But yeah, I don't think 12 years is enough. But he pled guilty to manslaughter. That was the deal. And according to Google, in Arizona, manslaughter is a class 2 felony carrying a minimum prison sentence of 7 years and a maximum of 21 years for a first-time offender. So, that was the deal. Whereas I do have an article that I will share just about the other 6, because they were all supposed to go to trial together, and Mr. Hines decided to make a plea. So this tentative trial date for 7 suspects arrested in Preston Lord's murder set for July 2025. Well, now we know it's 6. A tentative trial date has been set. Preston, Billy, Talon Renner, Talon Vigil, Dominic Turner, Taylor Sherman, Jacob Meisner, and their lawyers appeared before a judge on Thursday morning, which this was back in May. Oh, May 10th. May 9th, May 10th. Oh, last year. Okay, so this was, exactly a year ago. All are being charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping. Billy, Meisner, and Turner are also facing aggravated robbery charges. Judge Bruce R. Cohen initially asked for a trial in May 2025, but the defense lawyers disagreed. A date was set for next summer, July 21st, 2025. However, the judge explained the court date set during Thursday's hearing could change depending how the case plays out. Judge Cohen also addressed concerns regarding the timeline of the trial. Some people may think, how is that even possible that it could take that long? It does, and it's not just this case. There's many cases that take a long period of time based on the amount of evidence there is and the work that has to be done to prepare. It certainly makes things more complicated when there are multiple defendants because each defendant's rights could impact the rights or case of another defendant. It's not that unusual. Lawyers for the 7 suspects and Judge Cohen came to a consensus that a trial in October or November of this year would be unrealistic based on the thousands of photos and video evidence to comb through. I received over 400 videos, many hundreds of gigabytes, one lawyer said. It's hard for me to imagine that we'd be ready to try this case in under a year. Vigil's lawyer argued that a trial date could be 2 to 3 years down the line, but Judge Cohen disagreed. Today, what I'll be doing is setting a more viable trial date so we have it. It's a target, but for everyone to understand, I'm not assigning the word firm to it. I realize that there are many moving pieces to any case, this one included. We'll address it as we move forward. I don't know if 2 years is necessary, but I know this fall is unrealistic. At the beginning of the hearing, the attorney for Renner initially argued to ban media cameras from inside the courtroom. Of course he did. But Judge Cohen struck down the defendant's objection. Renner's attorney replied, I feel like I have a .50 caliber weapon pointed at me. However, Judge Cohen ruled cameras were not permitted to show the defendant's faces, so that explains why we couldn't see Hines' face. Defense lawyers argued that showing the suspects in orange jumpsuits and handcuffs would taint the jury's image. Oh, apparently his lawyer has Twitter. Okay. Experts doubt the trial would start a year from July. That seems fast for a murder trial with a huge number of defendants, said Louis Fidel, an Arizona criminal defense attorney unaffiliated with the case. Fidel said having a trial for 7 defendants is uncommon. He said it is advantageous to set a trial date so all parties get to work with a deadline, even if that deadline is delayed multiple times. That often can benefit the defense for several reasons, including witnesses' memories fading, and especially in Lord's case, the added high-profile nature. There's less emotional investment. There's less notoriety the older a case gets. But will this even make it to trial at all? Something in the neighborhood of 95% of cases are resolved via a plea agreement. Fidel said, while that statistic isn't specific to a type of case, it is something we could see here with any one of the 7 murder suspects. And we did with William Hines. The reality is the wheels of justice turn slowly, and while Fidel said he understands how frustrating that can be for the community that wants closure and justice for Lord, he said it's imperative to get this trial right with a high-stakes first-degree murder case that still has the possibility of the death penalty. There is no undoing a capital sentence, so it's extremely important the case be investigated and defended and handled correctly. Arizona's family also spoke with a former Maricopa County prosecutor Thursday unaffiliated with the case. He said most likely this trial would happen in 2026 or even 2027. All right, and I'm going to end there. I will put the link in the description if anyone would like to read more. Hey, Patty, how's it going? Yeah, I hadn't realized I need to start kind of looking up other cases I've done. So this happened, I believe the sentencing was actually Friday. The trial for a semi driver that plowed into the back of a bus there was a car in between where people were killed. That trial started today. There's just so many stories happening and there's just not enough time. So I think a few of the stories that I thought to talk about today, I will probably just do shorts on, or I will schedule another live probably Wednesday. I'm thinking Wednesday I would do another live. But there's just so much going on. And I was actually just thinking about Preston because I was going through my videos trying to find a certain video. And I saw his and I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that I had covered that. And it's been a while. So we'll have to, you know, like I said, I forgot about that 1,600-page document, and we got through, I can't remember, we didn't get through very many, but there is part 1 of us going through those documents that is in the playlist linked in the description of this live. So we may have to take, especially before the trial, if and when it happens, we'll definitely take a deep dive into the case before the trial starts, because there's a lot to it, and this has been a long time coming. So oh yeah, and I just noticed it changed I wanted this one. Yeah. So let me let's see, where's my full screen? Here it is. So I have this one, and then, so this one I used because it was daytime, but then the other one I like this one a little bit better. I have this if I go live at night. It has like the sunset. So I like that one too. Either one. All right, we'll put this one back. And let me put myself back in the screen there. All right, well, this was a little bit longer live than I usually do, but I thought it was important to watch the entire sentencing. I had initially thought of just showing a clip, but I really wanted to hear the victim impact statement, so I said we're just going to watch the whole sentencing. Yeah, that's true. I wondered that, Southern Gal. Most all defendants are not brought in jumpsuits or cuffs. I'm thinking maybe, I don't know. That's a good point. I'll have to do, look into this a little more and see if there's any newer updates. I haven't watched Ken Maines in a long time. I'll have to take a look at him. Gosh, I used to watch him all the time. It's been a while. I know, Southern Gal. I have so many in my queue to watch too. It's wild. Oh my gosh, SG, that's terrible. Oh, hey, Legally Blonde. Thanks for being here. All right, y'all. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your night. And if I don't see you on these YouTube streets, I will see you on the flip side.
You have one shot on stage, what you got to play? Generic drops for days, still the people rage. Am I not insane? Can you stop and explain why these drops are so lame? Is money buying you fame? I'm fucking on, I'm killing it with this song. You haters can sing along or go back where you belong. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with giving up, moving on. Cause I took your girl to prom, she can't help but sing this song. Comes off till the lights go out, till my legs give out. Can't shut my mouth till the smoke clears out. And my high harass, I'ma rip this shit till my bones collapse. Till the roof comes off, till the lights go out, till my legs give out. Can't shut my mouth till the smoke clears out. And my high harass, I'ma rip this shit till my bones collapse. So on like a light switch, flirting back. There's nothing wrong with the way that she's working that. I just want that body bad, come on baby, bring it back. I'm so gone, faded off a 30 rack. She's so on like a light switch, flirting back. There's nothing wrong with the way that she's working that. I just want that body bad, come on baby, bring it back. I rap with a passion, yeah, I got it in me. I've been waiting quite a long time for y'all to hear me. It's about damn time you put some stock into me. You're either sponsoring me or fucking bothering me. And the fact is, we just practice all this madness. That is why our status is like a canvas. Chances our advancement is enhancing, and this new expansion's like a mansion. Comes on till the lights go out, till my legs give out. Can't shut my mouth till the smoke clears out. And my high progress, I'ma rip this shit till my bones collapse. Till the roof comes off, till the lights go out, till my legs give out. Can't shut my mouth till the smoke clears out. And my high progress, I'ma rip this shit till my bones collapse.